December 14th, 1944. The Schnee Eifel, Ardennes Forest. The cold doesn't just bite, it gnaws. It seeps through wool coats and steel helmets, a relentless, invasive presence that feels more alive than the frozen trees around you. For Corporal John Miller, 422nd Infantry Regiment, 106th Infantry Division, the cold is the least of his worries. The real enemy is the darkness. A darkness so absolute it feels like a physical weight pressing down on his eyelids. Out there, somewhere past the brittle fingers of the fir trees, the Germans own this blackness. They move through it like wraiths, their hobnailed boots making barely a whisper on the frosted earth. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of wind sends a jolt of pure adrenaline through the American lines, a line stretched dangerously thin. Miller hunches lower in his foxhole, the frozen dirt as hard as concrete. The smell of pine and damp earth is thick in his nostrils. He can hear the nervous breathing of Private First Class Abe Rosenthal next to him, a sound like sandpaper on wood. For 3 nights straight, the Germans have played their game. They don't launch full assaults, they probe. A single squad, maybe 2, materializing out of the gloom to cut a communication line, toss a grenade into a listening post, or simply fire a single, terrifying shot before melting back into the forest. They are ghosts, and the Americans are blind. Every GI gripping his M1 Garand knows the drill. Don't fire at shadows. Don't give away your position. Just sit, listen, and pray they pass you by. It's a losing game. Morale is fraying like a worn rope. Tonight, the air is dead still. A fresh layer of snow muffles the world, creating a silence so profound it rings in the ears. It's the kind of silence that makes you feel utterly alone. Suddenly, a sound cuts through it, a low, guttural German voice, impossibly close. Miller's heart slams against his ribs. He freezes, his knuckles white on the stock of his rifle. Rosenthal lets out a sharp, involuntary hiss of breath. The voice is followed by a quiet laugh. They're out there, maybe 50 yards away, maybe 30, moving with an unnerving confidence, invisible masters of the night. Miller and Rosenthal don't dare move, don't dare breathe. They are prey, hiding in a hole, waiting for the hunters to pass. Minutes stretch into an eternity. The voices fade. The patrol moves on. But the message is clear. We can get to you anytime we want. When dawn finally cracks the horizon, painting the sky in bruised shades of gray and purple, it reveals the night's work. A telephone wire leading back to battalion headquarters, severed. 2 men from Charlie Company, gone from their outpost, leaving behind only frozen bloodstains in the snow. The platoon sergeant, a grizzled veteran of North Africa named Master Sergeant Kilpatrick, gathers his NCOs. His face is a grim mask of exhaustion and fury. "They're slicing us up piece by piece," he growls, his voice a low rumble. "We can't see 'em, we can't shoot 'em, we're just waiting for the axe to fall." It's later that day when a jeep, chains rattling on its tires, churns its way up the muddy track to their position. It carries a captain from Regimental S2, Intelligence, and 2 large, heavy wooden crates. The captain, a man with the weary eyes of someone who hasn't slept in a week, addresses Kilpatrick and a handful of designated marksmen, including Miller. "You boys having trouble with spooks in the dark?" he asks, his tone devoid of humor. Kilpatrick just grunts in response. The captain gestures to the crates. "Well, command has sent you a ghostbuster." 2 soldiers pry open the lids with a groan of protesting wood. Inside, nestled in padded felt, is something no one has ever seen before. It's a weapon, but it looks like something from a Buck Rogers comic strip. A standard M1 carbine, but mounted atop it is a bizarre, bulky scope, nearly a foot long, with a second, even larger cylinder attached just below it. Wires snake out from the assembly, leading to a canvas backpack containing what looks like a heavy radio battery. The captain holds it up. "This," he says, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "is the M2 Sniperscope. Officially, it does not exist. It sees in the dark. It sees things man was not meant to see." He explains the principle in clipped, simple terms. An invisible beam of black light shoots out, and the scope reads what it reflects. No flash, no sound beyond the crack of the carbine. He looks directly at Miller. "We've got 2 of these for the whole damn regiment. They're top secret. If you think for 1 second you're going to be captured, you destroy it. You use the thermite grenade that comes with it, and you turn this thing to slag. Am I clear? Losing your rifle is one thing. Losing this will land a man in Leavenworth for the rest of his life." The men stare in stunned silence. It seems impossible, a piece of science fiction dropped into their muddy, bloody reality. The captain's final words hang in the freezing air, a warning laced with a tantalizing promise. Most commanders won't even let these things out of the arms room. They're too afraid the Krauts will get their hands on one. But up here, we're desperate. So the gear is forbidden, he says, a grim smile touching his lips. But tonight, when the sun goes down, you're going to take this forbidden gear, and you're going to hunting. The crate sits in the command dugout like a holy relic or an unexploded bomb. As dusk bleeds across the snow-covered Ardennes, Sergeant Kilpatrick, Miller, and Rosenthal gather around it. The air in the dugout is thick with the smell of wet wool, kerosene, and fear. Kilpatrick runs a skeptical hand over the strange device. It's heavy, clumsy. The M1 carbine, usually a light, handy weapon, is transformed into an unwieldy, front-heavy beast. The scope itself is a monster of metal and glass, and the infrared illuminator beneath it looks like a futuristic searchlight. "So this is the magic lamp?" Kilpatrick mutters, unconvinced. "Looks more like something that'll get a man killed." Miller lifts the canvas backpack. It weighs nearly 20 pounds. Inside, the lead-acid battery is a dense, unforgiving block. He connects the thick, rubber-coated cable to the scope assembly, the plug seating with a heavy, final-sounding clunk. According to the S2 captain's rushed briefing, this battery is their lifeline and their leash. It holds enough power for maybe 4 or 5 hours of continuous use, if they're lucky. In this, probably less. The power is everything. Without it, the scope is just a useless lump of steel, and the man carrying it is just a soldier with an awkward rifle, a heavy pack, and a target on his back. "All right, Miller," Kilpatrick says, his voice low. "Let's see if this thing actually works. Point it at the back of the dugout. Cover the entrance." Rosenthal drapes a heavy wool blanket over the dugout's opening, plunging them into near-total blackness. The only light is the faint orange glow from the small field stove in the corner. For a moment, they just stand there, letting their eyes adjust, experiencing the same suffocating blindness that will soon blanket the entire forest. Miller feels his way around the weapon, his fingers finding a switch near the pistol grip. He flips it. A low, almost imperceptible hum emanates from the power pack. From the front of the scope, nothing happens. No visible light, no beam. It's utterly silent and dark. But when Miller presses his eye to the rubber cup on the eyepiece, the world transforms. The familiar dark interior of the dugout is replaced by a shimmering, ethereal landscape of pale green and ghostly white. It's a flat, two-dimensional world, lacking depth, but it is undeniably visible. He can see the weave on Rosenthal's jacket, the weary lines etched into Kilpatrick's face, the individual grains of dirt in the dugout wall. They are all bathed in a spectral, otherworldly glow. "Holy Mother of God," Miller breathes, the words fogging in the cold air. Kilpatrick leans in. "What do you see?" Miller, still mesmerized, describes the scene. "Everything. I can see everything." He pans the rifle, the eerie green world swimming in his vision. The technology is staggering. An image converter tube inside the scope is being bombarded by electrons, excited by the invisible infrared light reflecting off the objects in front of him. He doesn't understand the physics, the vacuum tubes, or the cesium oxide silver photocathode. All he knows is that he's holding a miracle. He's looking through the devil's lantern, and it has burned away the night. They take it outside. The sun has fully set, and a sliver of a moon does little to pierce the oppressive canopy of the forest. To the naked eye, the tree line is a solid black wall. Miller shoulders the M3 carbine, the designated variant for the scope, and peers through the eyepiece again. The forest leaps into existence. Every tree, every snow-laden branch is rendered in that same haunting phosphorescent green. He can see 50, maybe 75 yards with startling clarity. He scans the American perimeter, the shapes of foxholes, the glint off a helmet, the silhouette of a guard stamping his feet to stay warm. It's like having a superpower. The feeling is intoxicating, a surge of power that pushes back against the gnawing fear of the last few nights. But the device is not without its flaws. The image is grainy, and small branches or falling snow can create confusing flickers of light. Focusing is a slow, deliberate process. And aiming is a challenge. The carbine's trajectory is a high arc, and the scope has to be zeroed perfectly. Any bump could throw it off. This isn't a tool for long-range marksmanship. This is for close, brutal, intimate work. This is a weapon for ambush. Suddenly, Rosenthal, who is scanning the darkness with binoculars, grabs Miller's arm. "Movement," he whispers, his voice tight with tension. 9 o'clock, by that big fallen pine. Miller swings the heavy weapon, his muscles already straining. He finds the pine tree in the ghostly green viewfinder. At first, there's nothing, just the silent, still woods. He holds his breath, the low hum of the power pack, a private soundtrack to the unfolding drama. Then he sees it, a flicker of motion. A pale, man-shaped silhouette detaches itself from the shadow of a tree trunk. Then another and another. A German patrol, moving slowly, cautiously, using the darkness as their cloak. They are completely unaware, swaggering with the confidence of predators who believe themselves to be invisible. They have no idea that less than 100 yards away, a lone American soldier is watching them through an impossible window, seeing them not as shadows, but as glowing green and white targets. The hunt has begun. The air in Corporal Miller's lungs seems to crystallize. Through the M2 Sniperscope, the world is a silent, ghostly movie. The German soldiers move with practiced ease, their Mauser 98K rifles held at a low ready, their forms glowing like phantoms in the infrared haze. There are 4 of them. One stays back, providing overwatch, while the other 3 advance in a staggered formation toward the American lines. They are heading for a weak point between 2 outposts, a known gap the GIs have been unable to cover effectively at night. They move without fear. For them, this is a routine excursion into an enemy's blind spot. Miller steadies the M1 carbine on the lip of the foxhole. The weapon feels alien, a 20-pound amalgamation of wood, steel, and forbidden science. He focuses on the lead German, the point man. The man's face is a pale, featureless oval in the scope. Miller can see the vapor of his breath, a faint, pulsing cloud in the green-hued world. He centers the glowing crosshairs on the man's chest. His heart hammers a frantic rhythm against his ribs. This isn't like any shooting he's ever done. There is no glint of moonlight, no silhouette against the skyline. He is aiming at a ghost that only he can see. He takes a slow breath, lets half of it out, and gently squeezes the trigger. The M1 carbine barks, a surprisingly modest sound in the vast snow-dampened forest. The crack of the .30 caliber round is sharp, but there is no betraying muzzle flash. The weapon is fitted with a T-23 flash hider, but even without it, the carbine's report is less ostentatious than the full-powered Garand. The effect is instantaneous and horrific. Through the scope, Miller sees the lead German soldier simply collapse. There is no cry, no dramatic spin. One moment he is a glowing, walking figure. The next, he is a crumpled heap in the snow. The other 3 Germans freeze. They spin around, dropping into low crouches, their weapons scanning the impenetrable wall of blackness around them. They heard the shot, it was close, but they saw nothing. No flash to aim at, no direction. Just the sudden, inexplicable death of their comrade. From their perspective, a man just dropped dead, felled by an invisible force. Miller can see their confusion turning to raw panic. One of them shouts something in German, his voice a sharp, terrified query that cuts through the night. Miller has already shifted his aim. His target is the second man in the file, who is now half exposed behind a tree. The soldier is peering frantically into the darkness, directly toward Miller's position, but his eyes see only shadows. He is looking right at his killer, and has no idea. Miller lines up the shot. Squeeze. The carbine cracks again. The second German lurches sideways and falls, his helmet tumbling off and rolling a few feet into the snow. Now terror takes hold. The remaining 2 Germans are utterly undone. Their comrade has just been struck down right beside them, again by an unseen assailant. They are being hunted by something they cannot comprehend. One of them, losing all discipline, stands up and sprays a full magazine from his MP40 submachine gun into the forest. The muzzle flash is a brilliant, blinding strobe in the darkness, a beacon of his own panic. It illuminates nothing but dancing snowflakes and empty trees. To Miller, watching through the scope, the man is a frantic, glowing silhouette, firing at ghosts. The other soldier grabs his comrade, screaming at him to get down, to be quiet. They are trapped. To stay is death. To run is the only option. They break, scrambling back the way they came, crashing through the underbrush, their professional stealth abandoned in a desperate flight for their lives. Miller watches them go, his finger resting on the trigger. He could take another shot, but Kilpatrick's voice, a harsh whisper from beside him, stops him. Let him go. Let him go back and tell the story. The sergeant is peering into the darkness with his binoculars, seeing nothing but the black void the Germans had just fled from. But he heard the shots, heard the screams. He claps a hand on Miller's shoulder, a gesture of profound, almost fearful respect. Jesus Christ, Miller, he breathes. They never saw you. They never saw a thing. In the American foxholes nearby, men are on high alert. They heard the shots, the German machine pistol, the panicked shouts. They brace for an attack that never comes. A few minutes later, the forest is silent again. The only evidence of the encounter are 2 dark shapes lying still in the snow, slowly being covered by a fresh dusting. Miller lowers the heavy rifle, the strain making his arms tremble. He switches off the power pack. The eerie green world vanishes, replaced by the familiar, terrifying blackness. But something has fundamentally changed. The darkness no longer feels like the enemy's sanctuary. Tonight, for the first time, the darkness belongs to them. The hunters have become the prey, and the Americans have a reaper with green eyes. The story spreads like a virus through the frozen trenches of the 422nd Regiment. It starts as a rumor, a whisper passed between shivering soldiers during the changing of the guard. 2 Krauts dropped dead in the pitch black. No muzzle flash, no sound of a machine gun. Just 2 sharp cracks and then panicked screaming. The Germans who fled back to their lines told a wild tale. They spoke of a Geist, a ghost, a phantom in the woods that struck from nowhere, an invisible marksman. Their officers, hardened veterans of the Eastern Front, dismissed it as combat fatigue, shell shock, the lies of cowards. But the story took root. The next night, German patrols were more hesitant. They moved with less confidence, their heads on a constant swivel, peering into a darkness that now seemed to hold a new and unknowable menace. For Corporal Miller, the legend is a heavy burden. He is no ghost. He is a tired, cold infantryman with a piece of impossible technology strapped to his back. The M2 Sniperscope, which the GIs have nicknamed the Gremlin, has become his constant companion. He spends his days cleaning it, checking the delicate wiring, and jealously guarding the precious lead-acid batteries, which are recharged by a hand-crank generator that sounds like a coffee grinder. By night, he and Sergeant Kilpatrick plan their hunts. They no longer wait for the Germans to come to them. They have become the predators. They operate as a small 2-man team, Miller with the sniperscope, Kilpatrick with a standard M1 Garand and a sack of grenades, providing security. They don't venture far, never more than 200 yards from the American lines, a short enough distance to scramble back if discovered. But in that 200-yard stretch of no man's land, they are kings. Under the cloak of moonless, overcast nights, Miller sweeps the forest in shimmering green and white. The scope turns the tables completely. It reveals the enemy's secrets, their patrol routes, their listening posts, the way they use certain ravines and creek beds for covered movement. One night, Miller spots a German team methodically laying tripwires for flares and booby traps just outside the American wire. He watches them for 10 minutes, his blood running cold as he realizes how close they are, how vulnerable his own platoon is. He waits for the perfect moment, when 2 of them are kneeling together, working on a fuse. He takes one, and Kilpatrick, using the sound of the carbine to mask his own shot, takes the other. The rest of the German team melts away, leaving their deadly work unfinished. The whispering death, as some Germans have started calling it, has struck again. The psychological impact is devastating. The Germans can no longer trust the darkness. Their greatest tactical advantage has been turned into a death trap. Patrols are now ordered to move in larger groups, which makes them easier to spot. They fire nervously at shadows, wasting ammunition and giving away their positions. The quiet, terrifying efficiency of their nightly incursions is gone, replaced by a clumsy, fearful paranoia. For the men of the 106th Division in this small sector, the nightly terror has lifted. They can rest a little easier in their foxholes, knowing the Gremlin is out there, watching over them. But the success brings new pressures. The regimental S2 officer returns, his face etched with a new urgency. Reconnaissance reports and radio intercepts suggest a major German buildup across the front. "They're planning something big, Miller," the captain says, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're picking up chatter about Stoßtruppen, specialist infiltration units moving into the area. Their job is to get behind our lines just before the main attack, cut our comms, seize crossroads, create chaos. If they succeed, we'll be deaf, dumb, and blind when the hammer falls." He points to a map, tapping a finger on a deep, wooded ravine that leads directly behind the 422nd's command post. This is their highway. We know they're using it, but we can't get close enough to mine it or cover it with a machine gun without them spotting us. Tonight, they're expecting a critical team to come through. They'll likely be wearing American uniforms, so don't shoot until you're damn sure. The mission is clear. Miller isn't just protecting a few foxholes anymore.
He and Kilpatrick have to go deeper into the forest than ever before, find this elite sabotage team and eliminate them. The fate of the entire regiment could depend on what one man can see through a classified, forbidden lens in the dead of night. The stakes have been raised from survival to strategic defense, and the battery on Miller's back has never felt heavier.
December 15th. The cold has intensified, and a biting wind whips through the pines, carrying fine, sharp particles of snow. It's a miserable night for a hunt. Miller and Kilpatrick move out just after true darkness falls, two ghosts slipping away from the relative safety of their own lines. Every step is a calculated risk. They move slowly, using the trees for cover, the crunch of their boots on the snow a deafening roar in their own ears. Miller carries the M3 carbine at a low ready, the power pack humming softly on his back. He stops every 50 feet, raises the scope, and scans the path ahead in that eerie, spectral green. The ravine is a jagged black scar in the landscape. To the naked eye, it's a pit of absolute black. But through the sniperscope, it resolves into a detailed, if distorted, panorama of rock, snow, and skeletal trees. The scope's effective range is barely 100 yards, a severe limitation. They have to get close, dangerously close. They find a position on a small ridge overlooking the ravine floor, a natural choke point. They settle in behind a fallen log, the frozen bark digging into their elbows. And then they wait. The minutes crawl by, turning into an hour, then two. The cold is a physical pain now. Miller's fingers, even in his gloves, are numb. His greatest fear is the battery. He switches the scope on only for brief periods, scanning for 30 seconds before switching it off to conserve power. Each time he plunges himself back into blindness, the feeling of vulnerability is overwhelming. He is completely dependent on this fragile, top-secret contraption. If it fails, they are just two men, deep in enemy territory, with nothing but a carbine and a rifle against a ghost team of elite German infiltrators. Then he sees them. During a routine scan, 5 figures suddenly appear in his viewfinder, moving up the ravine floor. They are distinct, glowing shapes against the dark snow. They move with a fluid, lethal grace that marks them as crack troops. As they get closer, Miller can make out details that make his stomach clench. They are wearing American M1 helmets and winter greatcoats. They carry American weapons, Garands and a BAR. They are a textbook Trojan horse, a Brandenburger-style unit sent to sow confusion and chaos. Kilpatrick nudges him. "You sure?" he whispers, his breath pluming. Miller doesn't answer. He zooms in, focusing on the lead figure. The man turns his head slightly, and for a split second, the infrared light reflects off the side of his boot. Miller sees it clearly, the unmistakable shape of a German hobnailed jackboot. That's all he needs. "It's them," he confirms, his voice tight. They are 70 yards out and closing. Perfect range. Miller flips the power switch to stay on. He can feel the gentle vibration of the inverter through the stock. He has maybe an hour of power left. It has to be enough. He lines up his first target, the man carrying the bar, the team's heaviest firepower. He breathes out, the crosshair steady on the glowing green chest. The carbine cracks. The bar gunner goes down instantly. Chaos erupts. The remaining 4 soldiers dive for cover, returning fire immediately. But they are shooting blind. Their muzzle flashes illuminate the opposite side of the ravine, nowhere near Miller and Kilpatrick's concealed position. They are firing at echoes. Miller quickly acquires his next target, a man trying to set up a radio, and fires again. Another ghost goes down. Now there are 3. They are seasoned professionals. They stop firing randomly. They know they've walked into a sophisticated ambush. They begin to crawl, spreading out, trying to flank the unseen shooter. This is the test. They are no longer static targets. They are hunters themselves, using every bit of their skill to survive and turn the tables. Miller's heart pounds. He pans the scope, his movements jerky with adrenaline. He catches a glimpse of a helmet moving behind a rock. He fires, and the helmet disappears. 2 left. But where is the 5th man? He scans frantically. The underbrush is thick, creating a confusing, flickering image in the scope. A green shape suddenly lunges from the shadows on his far right, charging up the slope toward their position. He's close, too close. Maybe 40 yards. Miller swings the heavy rifle, trying to acquire the target, but the charging German is a blur. Kilpatrick.
Miller yells. The sergeant, who had been waiting for this moment, rises up on one knee. He can't see the German, but he sees the direction Miller is aiming. He raises his M1 Garand and fires 2 quick shots into the blackness where Miller indicated. A scream tears through the night, followed by the heavy thud of a body falling in the snow. Silence. Miller scans the ravine again. The last German is gone. He has either retreated or is hiding, waiting. They hold their position for 20 agonizing minutes, the hum of the battery pack the only sound. Nothing. The threat is neutralized. Shivering, drained, and running on pure adrenaline, they make their way back to the American lines. They leave the enemy bodies where they fell, a silent testament to the battle that no one saw. When the German offensive, the Battle of the Bulge, slams into the 106th Division hours later, the communication lines behind the 422nd Regiment are still intact. The initial assault is met with organized resistance, not the chaos the Germans had planned. No one ever officially knows how close the regiment came to being crippled before the first shot was even fired. The secret of the ghost scope remains safe, locked away in the experiences of a few cold, tired men who were given a glimpse of the future and used it to hold back the dark. The technology was forbidden, the advantage unfair, but in the frozen hell of the Ardennes, it was the only thing that kept the ghosts at bay.